And Japan's Prime Minister purges his cabinet, weeding out dozens of lawmakers embroiled in a political funding scandal. Fumio Kishida vows to regain the trust of the public amid dwindling support for his government.
And for more on the turmoil in Japanese politics, Tomohiko Taniguchi, a specially appointed professor at the University of Tsukuba, joins us live from Tokyo. He's also a former special advisor to Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's cabinet. Professor, now all this talk about whether Fumio Kishida will survive this political funding scandal, for all that ratings both for himself and his administration, they have entered uncharted territory. He doesn't actually need to worry, does he, until September next year?
You're absolutely correct. What will happen in September next year is going to be the leadership election within the LDP, Liberal Democratic Party, the ruling party. And the subsequent year, 2025, is going to be a very big year in Japanese politics. Lower and upper houses both may likely have elections. And in that case, rank and file members, backbenchers of the LDP will be very nervous come July, August next year, wondering if they could campaign behind this individual, Mr. Kishida. But for the time being, Mr. Kishida has no rival and no elections looming, and he does not have to dissolve the Japanese parliament, so he can be actually relaxed.
So in fact, the political calendar and the lack of rivals mean that despite the loss of, let's face it, the policy chief in the LDP, the internal affairs minister, the chief cabinet secretary, all these things do not matter because ultimately the man is safe for now.
It would not matter if Prime Minister Kishida works in a wise fashion, as if it doesn't matter. And he must devote himself to delivering his policy plans and packages. And despite all these tumultuous events, he could survive, to make the point again.
All right, Professor, tumultuous what's happening right now, but our correspondent earlier on this bulletin said for the very first time in recent years, you're looking at an LDP that is devoid of members from the Abe faction. Now, if internal party politics is a zero-sum game, if the Abe faction is weakened in principle, the Kishida faction, or those who, I suppose, circle around the current prime minister, should gain in terms of their delivery power. Is that something you can say might happen that Mr. Kishida can use for him in the weeks and months ahead?
Obviously, this is going to be one of the most difficult balancing acts that Prime Minister Kishida must implement very much carefully, because he has appeared unscathed, despite the fact that he has lost one of the most staunchest group of supporters behind Mr. Kishida. That was Abe's group. So there is a bad feeling still lingering among those members of the Abe group, and whether Kishida could mend the fences is going to be an open-ended question. So far, Mr. Kishida has not been known to be so much tactful in grabbing minds and hearts of the people, both within the party and without.
I'll phrase this carefully, Professor. Within the Japanese media, with the Japanese public, you could say this Prime Minister, and I quote you there, lacks clear commitment to any single identifiable issue. Is that something he can change with this current turmoil?
He has got to change. He looks very much plastic, emotionless, and it's hard to see what sort of issues that he has very much committed to. But next spring is going to be crucial, because he's got to deliver his own policy packages. And why these policy packages matter is something that he has got to say in a very, very much convincing way to the Japanese voters.
Oh, your suggestion is the man is perhaps not so strong on communication. But he also not just communicate. He also has to deliver on very clear issues such as cost of living crisis, jobs as well in Japan. Is that something he can do between now and September next year, when rank and file in the LDP need to decide, is this man someone we are going to back as our leader in the LDP? Final question.
Well, it's going to be a very much challenging task. Japanese media outlets, Sensing Blood, are publishing polls every Monday. And one of those polls has indicated that his popularity ratings have gone down below 20%. And come January, there is going to be a session opening for the upper house and lower house. And the opposition parties are going to do their utmost to veto Prime Minister Kishida's policy packages. And in order for him to break the barrier, what could he rely upon? Communication.
Oh, thanks for that. Professor Tomohiko Taniguchi from the University of Tsukuba. Thanks for joining us this evening.